How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Edmonton. Moreno vs. Albazi on November 2nd, 2024. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 14. We start with Jamey-Lyn Horth vs. Ivana Petrović. I'm going to go with Jamey-Lyn Horth on this one. This fight is a little weird. Ivana Petrović is just a little bit more technical on the feet. I like her ones and twos. But I think that in the clinch, I think Jamey-Lyn Horth might be able to bully Ivana a little bit, and I think that's where Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to try and get this fight to. Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to have a pretty big reach disadvantage in this fight, and I think Ivana Petrović, she's pretty long for a division like women's flyweight, but I think Jamey-Lyn Horth, even though she is a little bit shorter from the stat readings, she is a very big woman for women's flyweight. She's like thick for the division, not like how fucking goobers use the word thick, but like she's like a big bulky for a division like women's flyweight. And I think that Ivana Petrović, I've seen her get bullied in the clinch before. She can get some work going in the clinch, but I think a girl like Jamey-Lyn Horth, who is very strong, I've seen have a very competitive fight with Veronica Hardy, who we're seeing is actually pretty decent at MMA as she continues to grow in the sport. Jamey-Lyn Horth, she's just a little bit stronger. She does throw a bit more than Ivana Petrović, and I like that. Ivana Petrović, she is sometimes a little bit lower output. Same with Jamey-Lyn Horth, but when she starts throwing in combinations, she keeps throwing in combinations. She does more damage in the clinch. I just think that Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to make it a bit boring, make it a bit hard to judge, but all you're going to remember in the rounds is Jamey-Lyn Horth in controlling positions, maybe getting a couple takedowns here and there, top control, clinch control, and I think that they're going to lean with Jamey-Lyn Horth. I'll go Jamey-Lyn Horth 30-27. I think she's just going to win the clinch battles. On the feet, even, it'll be close, but I think Ivana will slightly outstrike Jamey-Lyn Horth, but I think Jamey-Lyn Horth will get enough clinch control, which in WMMA means everything. Damage doesn't mean shit, apparently. Excuse me again. So I'll go Jamey-Lyn Horth. We move to Chad Anheliger versus Cody Gibson. I'm going to go with Cody Gibson, I guess. Chad Anheliger versus Cody Gibson. I think Cody Gibson's going to be significantly larger than Chad Anheliger. Chad's always been kind of a weird bantamweight. He's older, he's shorter for the division, and his reach is kind of shocking, but Cody Gibson's kind of an anomaly where he's one of the bigger dudes at the division. He is also older, he is also slower. But I think Cody Gibson's last performance against Brian Kelleher showed that he's actually pretty competent when it comes to fighting. He went to decision with Miles Johns, which is like, alright. He had like some moments, I guess. When Cody Gibson throws and goes forward, he's actually like, alright. And I think Chad Anheliger, he's a very patient guy. Unless you're tired, then he starts really fucking laying it on you. He has to get into his flow state. I think Cody Gibson's pretty good at disrupting people's flow states by introducing the clinch, going for takedowns. He's so much bigger than Chad Anheliger in this fight. I think Chad's going to have a really big problem getting his main weapons going besides his leg kicks, because Cody Gibson is kind of in a, squatted stance, so his lead leg is pretty heavily out there. I think Chad Anheliger is going to be whipping his signature leg kicks, but, his straight punches, his lunging straight punches are going to be a little harder to get on a guy like Cody Gibson. I think Cody Gibson's going to push a pace. Chad Anheliger's been subbed 6 times in his career, man. I look at that. 6 of his losses come by sub. He's only lost 1 by decision. That was to Alatong Ali. He's been subbed a lot. I'll go Cody Gibson, submission. I'll go arm triangle. He got it over Brian Kelleher. He looks for it. He jumped on it right away. And Chad Anheliger's defensive grappling is a little suspect at times. I mean, Carlampos Gregorio was shooting when he was tired and still getting into all right positions on the fence. So, yeah, I'll go Cody Gibson. I'll go second round arm triangle. We move to Serhiy versus Garrett Armfield. I like Garrett Armfield, but I'm going to go with Serhiy in this fight. This is going to be a very interesting fight. I wonder if Serhiy's going to try and grapple a bit more. I think on the feet, it's a weird matchup because Garrett Armfield is going to be shorter than Serhiy Sidey by quite a significant amount of height, or inches rather, but he's got the weird build where his torso's kind of smaller and his arms are kind of long too. So Garrett Armfield isn't at a huge disadvantage in the reach department at least, but Serhiy Sidey pressures very well, and in Garrett Armfield's last fight, a pace really fucking crushed him in that fight. He looked pretty solid against Brad Katona, which that pace was kind of good too, but he kind of just outpointed him a little bit. I think Serhiy Sidey's pressure, his presence is felt a lot in the cage, and I like that for Serhiy Sidey. He walks forward. Most of the tall guys you see can allow smaller guys to walk him down, actually, because they're scared of the takedown. Serhiy Sidey can actually grapple a little bit. I like that for him in this matchup against Garrett Armfield. Garrett Armfield's boxing is pretty solid. I will give him that. I think Serhiy Sidey's just a little bit more technical than him. I think Garrett Armfield loops a lot of his shots. I think Serhiy Sidey's straight shots down the button are going to get a lot of work done in this fight. Garrett Armfield's countering ability is a little tricky for me because Serhiy Sidey did get countered quite a bit against Rome Tavares, but I think that I'll go with Serhiy Sidey's just initial attacks over Garrett Armfield, like his counter punches. I think Serhiy Sidey manages distance well. I think he uses a crushing pace against certain guys. Against Rome Tavares, I mean, holy shit, he just walked him down literally the entire time. And Serhiy Sidey can take a punch, and he's got a lot of heart for him. It does concern me that he hasn't fought in almost a year since the Ramon Tavares rematch. I mean, that was this June, but he did take quite a bit of damage. I like Serhiy Sidey, though. I like what he stands for. I like his stand-up. He uses kicks a lot. Throws a lot of head kicks. Throws a lot of body kicks. Uses a lot of jabs. He likes to catch people when they're running away, which is what a lot of people... I like Garrett Armfield's movement, but sometimes he does exit exchanges in a little awkward senses. I think Serhiy Sidey might be able to clinch a little bit in this fight as well. He didn't really get to do that against Ramon Tavares because he was exiting the exchanges well early on, but then Serhiy Sidey kind of got comfortable with exchanging with him. But I think Serhiy Sidey, I don't think he KOs or finishes Garrett Armfield. I think it will be a competitive fight. I'll go Serhiy Sidey. I'll go 29-28 Serhiy Sidey. I think the first round Garrett Armfield might be able to land enough on Serhiy Sidey because Serhiy Sidey does take a second to get into that flow state, and when people start to get slower and start to gas out, that's when he really starts to land his shots, and Garrett Armfield does slow down at times, especially when a pace is really set on him. So I'll go Serhiy Sidey, 29-28, unanimous decision, lock it in. We move to Alexandr Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. I'm going to go with Alexandr Romanov. I just don't really think Rodrigo Nascimento's all that good. Alexandr Romanov, he's on a bit of a weird streak where he's won one of his last four. If you look at the people he's losing to, Volkov, Marcin Tybura, Jailton Almeida, he's only losing to, really solid guys. Rodrigo Nascimento, now fair enough, Rodrigo's only lost to Derek Lewis and Chris Daukaus. I think that Alexandr Romanov can take down Rodrigo Nascimento, if I'm being honest. Because from what I remember, Derek Lewis actually got some throws in on Rodrigo Nascimento. He, got in the clinch with him and took him down. And he, fucked around with him on the ground. Rodrigo isn't really all that scary on the ground. Now, when he's, when he's bouncing up and down on the feet and his muffin top is, jiggling everywhere, I'm a little bit afraid. I think if this fight goes a long way, if it goes to decision, I think Rodrigo will win. Because I think that Alexandr Romanov's cardio is a bit poop. It did look better in the Blagoy-Ivanov fight. In his striking, he mostly, I think he only struck with Blagoy-Ivanov, which was kind of crazy to see. I thought he wouldn't. But then Blagoy-Ivanov, he kind of has, does he have good takedown defense, or am I thinking about somebody else? I don't know. Fucking forget it. I think Alexandr Romanov's going to take down Rodrigo Nascimento. This isn't a fight where he's going to have a super physical disadvantage. like against Volkov, where he's 5 inches shorter and Volkov's actually good, or against Jailton Almeida, where Jailton's clearly on steroids and is just way better than him, or Marcin Tybura, where that fight probably should have been a draw because Alexandr Romanov did everything in the first round. I don't think Rodrigo Nascimento's all that good. I think if the fight goes to decision, I think that he probably will win because Romanov will probably slow down, but I think Romanov's going to TKO him in the first round, probably with ground and pound. I think Romanov's grappling, when he can get a hold of you, he's going to be really dangerous. And I think Rodrigo Nascimento is a prime victim for King Kong, just because I don't think he's really all that good. Rodrigo Nascimento, the guys he's beat in the UFC, Dante Almeida twice, Alir Latifi, and Tanner Boser. And 2 of those ones are split decisions. He's only lost by TKO. Like, he has a no contest with Alan Badeau. Alan Badeau ain't good. I know he TKO'd him, but it got overturned. Why did he take steroids or something? No way, fucking Rodrigo Nascimento. No way this fat fuck was on steroids. But like I said, I don't think Rodrigo's really all that good. He's kind of an NPC. I actually was very high on Alexandr Romanov when he was coming up. I think he can still kind of be something. So Rodrigo Nascimento, you're getting swallowed in the first round, buddy. Alexandr Romanov, I'll go first round finish. He either subs or TKOs him on the ground, because Alexandr Romanov is the only guy who has a forearm choke in the UFC, I'm pretty sure, when he did it against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. We move to Jack Shore versus Youssef Zalal. Kind of a tricky one. I'll go Youssef Zalal on this one. I think Youssef has looked pretty fucking solid in his past couple of performances, man. Billy Quarantillo and Jarno Aarons. I think Jarno did get cut, but Billy Quarantillo and Jarno Aarons back-to-back, even though, they aren't the best of fighters, right? They're not easy to beat either, and Youssef Zalal made Billy Quarantillo look easy, and he made Jarno Aarons look pretty simple, too. Jack Shore, I don't really like him at featherweight, if I'm being honest. I think he's just kind of fat and flabby. Or does he look in better shape for this card? Let's check. Jack, do you look in better shape? No, he didn't even get photos done. He's alright, but I think Jack Shore, his boxing combinations are alright. He throws a lot of 1s and 2s. That's basically it. His ground game's pretty impeccable. I think Youssef Zalal, I think he can... Whoa, holy shit. Curtis Blades. Ugh. Sorry if I'm talking weird throughout the video. I have a fucking canker sore on my fucking... It's right next to my, it's fucking with me. But anyways, I think Youssef Zalal's weapons can work very effectively against a guy like Jack Shore. I think his leg kicks can work very effectively. I think his takedown entries are very good. And it's not like Jack Shore is, impeccable takedown defense. He has 76, which is pretty good, but, this dude was kind of getting fucked up by Ricky Simone, and I know Ricky Simone was, alright when Jack Shore fought him. He was pretty good. That's when he was in the rankings. But, Ricky Simone he isn't really a submission guy either, and he subbed Jack Shore. Youssef Zalal is very good when it comes to submissions. I know Jack Shore is as well, 9 wins by sub. Youssef Zalal has 8, and he only has 15 wins. He also has 4 TKOs. He isn't going to decision as much. And all Zalal's losses are by decision. You have to take him to decision. This guy went to decision with Sean Woodson, with Ilya Taporia. Those are not easy guys to go to decisions with. He had to draw with Damone Blackshear, who's also great at grappling. He's not, fundamentally stupid on the feet. I think Youssef Zalal can have some weapons that trigger Jack Shore, because Jack Shore is kind of reactionary sometimes when it comes to striking. I think Youssef Zalal is a little patient, though. He is a little nonchalant when he throws his things, which could cause problems. But I think Youssef Zalal... He's going to look for his openings. He's going to find his timies. He's going to not take down Jack Shore necessarily, but even in the clinch, Youssef Zalal is very dangerous. He can jump on the back. He can go for, single legs. He can get the back. He can knee the thigh. He can try and do a little bit of damage. I think Youssef Zalal is just going to win this one by either sub, late, or decision. I think that's what's going to happen with Youssef Zalal. So either a late third round sub, or a decision for Youssef Zalal, probably 30-27. We move to Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain on this one. Moving down a weight class, there can be the divisional skill gap. Victor Henry's very old, 37 for bantamweight. Hasn't fought since the, no, he did fight. He fought Rani Yahya. But that's not even really a fight. Let's keep it a buck. And he took Rani Yahya to he took him to the third round. Oh no, but I thought he finished him in the first. I didn't even remember. I know he finished him. I thought he did it he took him to the third round. Oh yeah, I'm for sure picking Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain on a bit of a fight skid, Sean Woodson, tough fight for everybody. And then João Silva, which, I mean, what are we even doing there? Charles Jourdain, always been pretty fast, always been very technical when it comes to the striking, very good body kicks. He's not very rangy for featherweight. Down a weight class, I think this is where he should have been fighting probably his whole career, if I'm being honest. Charles Jourdain, he was always kind of not skinny fat at featherweight, but you can tell that he could cut a little bit more, and by God, is he fucking cut up for this fight. Holy shit. Charles Jourdain looks fucking cut up, dude. He looks very in shape for his bantamweight debut. He's probably going to be very quick. Victor Henry, he's very well-rounded. I'll give Victor Henry that, but he is a little lower output. Charles Jourdain, I think, is just going to out-volume Victor Henry in this fight. I think Charles Jourdain and Victor Henry can have a bit of a couple fun scrambling exchanges on the ground because Victor Henry and Charles Jourdain are both black belts. But I think on the feet, Victor Henry's boxing is all right. I think Charles Jourdain is just going to be a little bit quicker than him, a little bit more technical. He's going to throw a lot of body kicks. That's what he tries to gauge his range with, his body kicks. He whips them up very hard. Victor Henry, his wins in the UFC, Tony Gravely is all right. Rani Yahya, come on. Raoni Barcelos was a good win at the time. Very good win. Haney was 16-2. He lost to Rafael Assunção, and then he had the fight with Javid Basharat. He's kind of an enigma with his age, being 37 and still being able to have success. Charles Jourdain's going to have the youth advantage. He's going to have the reach advantage. He's going to have the size advantage. Probably going to have the striking advantage as well. Victor Henry's probably going to have to grapple in this fight, but he doesn't really shoot a lot of takedowns. He likes to keep it standing. He likes to do that. I think Charles Jourdain's just a bit better than him. That's it. We move to Ariane da Silva versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm going to go with Jasmine Jasudavicius on this one. This is a tricky fight because Ariane da Silva has looked pretty solid in her last couple of outings. She is younger. She has lost quite a bit in the UFC, though. But sometimes, especially as a recent against like Casey O'Neill, of course, and the Karine Silva fight was all right. Ariane da Silva throws hard. Her boxing's, she's pretty quick for a WMMA fighter. Pretty quick, especially at flyweight where a lot of people are a bit slower. Jasmine is going to be quite a bit slower than Ariane on the feet, if I'm being honest. But you always fucking, the butt's coming when I'm hyping up the guy I'm picking, or gal I'm picking against. Ariane da Silva's biggest weakness has always been her grappling and clinch game. And it has been improving. It has. She's increased her takedown defense significantly. But when she does get taken down, she does kind of get held down for moments. I mean, Karine Silva is very good. Don't get me wrong. Karine Silva is very good. Fighting on that 309 card, of course, against Viviane Araújo. But Jasmine's also pretty solid when it comes to grappling in her clinch game. She's very strong for women's flyweight, if you haven't noticed. Very strong. And she isn't completely inept on the feet either. Like Tracy Cortez did outstrike her convincingly, but Jasmine Jasudavicius was landing some hard shit on her. Same with like the Fatima Klein fight. The thing is, people can beat Jasmine on the feet, but when it gets to the grappling and her pressure and her pace, the presence she has in the cage, it kind of just makes people slow down and crumble. And she's very strong. Jasmine's kind of like she's taller for the Division II, pretty fucking big for women's flyweight. She kind of stalks people down. I think she can slow this fight down, slow down Ariane, bring her into a clinch grappling fest. Not a grappling fest, but kind of like a lay and pray type fight against the cage and maybe get some control time on there, laying some knees, laying some damage, try and get trips in the clinch, maybe get a couple of takedowns. And even if Ariane da Silva is able to defend takedowns and possibly like implement her own grappling, Jasmine Jasudavicius has great scrambles, has great get-ups and reversals. I think Jasmine is probably going to slow down Ariane in the first round, probably just pace her out a little bit. The second and third round, I think she'll edge out, get the second and third round, get a unanimous decision, 29-28 nod. I don't think she finishes Ariane da Silva, but who knows? Jasmine Jasudavicius has just looked pretty solid as of recent, even though the Fatima Klein fight, that isn't really a women's flyweight. That was a strawweight moving up. But I don't think Jasmine TKOs Ariane or anything, you know what I mean? But, yeah, Jasmine Jasudavicius, I don't think she has, the clear-cut striking to do so. Maybe, a late TKO, maybe, because Ariane has been TKO'd before. But, I think Jasmine probably wins a unanimous decision, 29-28, though. We move to the featured prelim. Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munhoz. I'll go with Pedro Munhoz. Aiemann Zahabi, he's a weird guy in MMA. When you look at it, he comes from a great gym from his brother, or is it his dad? I forget. Faraz Zahabi. They have a great gym up there. Aiemann Zahabi. The problem I have with Aiemann Zahabi, he's not young, and he has so little fights. Listen, he's all right. Aiemann Zahabi's all right. But to me, he's a little too wild for me against a guy like Pedro Munhoz. The guys who are clean-cut, who are dynamic strikers, who are very quick, have that quick twitch, who are able to lay it on him, will beat Pedro Munhoz. I don't see that for Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann Zahabi is the complete opposite of what you need to have to beat Pedro Munhoz. One, you need to have a good output. Aiemann Zahabi is one of the most low-output guys I've seen in a while. And that's saying something. I mean, this dude's been in the UFC since 2017, by the way, and he only has 7 fights. And he dropped he went actually, he's been in the UFC, it's 2017. He took 2 years off from his loss to Ricardo Ramos to fighting Vince Morales. He lost to both of those. He's on a 4-fight win streak, though. He is a little wild when it comes to his striking, very looping punches. My thing, again, I just don't like his output against a guy like Pedro Munhoz. I think Pedro Munhoz lands hard when he does throw, and I know a lot of people are starting to hop off Pedro Munhoz, especially after what Kyler Phillips did against Rob Font. He looked like poop, but I think that Kyler Phillips, I think those were two different guys that fought Pedro Munhoz and good old Rob Font. I think those are two completely different fighters. One, I think Kyler Phillips gassed himself out way too much by trying to grapple with Rob Font so much so early on in that fight. He tried to just strike with Pedro Munhoz, essentially. I think Pedro Munhoz's leg kicks are going to be there. Aiemann Zahabi, he's kind of there to get leg kicked. Very low output, riding against the outside of the cage. Very defensive. He doesn't throw a lot. When he does throw, it can be crisp and tight, but most of the times it's very overhandy, loopy hooks. He's kind of weird when it comes to that. I think Pedro Munhoz is just better. I know Pedro Munhoz is old, but here's the thing. Aiemann Zahabi isn't young. People will look at his age. Oh, he's 36. He's 2 years younger than him. Aiemann Zahabi turns 37 November 19th. This isn't like a young guy getting his shot at Pedro Munhoz. This is like an older dude who's just not fighting at all. And I don't think he finishes Pedro Munhoz. He definitely doesn't finish Pedro Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz has one of the better chins in the UFC, if I'm being honest. Very tough guy to put out. Very tough guy to submit. In fact, he's never lost by finish in his fucking career. I don't think Aiemann Zahabi finishes him, and I think Pedro Munhoz just will have a higher output and land more damage. Aiemann Zahabi just doesn't throw enough, and he's too weird. He's too weird to pick him against a solidified veteran like Pedro Munhoz. When a guy like Vince Morales and fucking Ricardo Ramos are putting you out, I can't pick you. I'm sorry. I just can't. I know he's on a 4-fight win streak. I get that he's on the 4-fight win streak. Against Draco Rodriguez, who went 0-2 in the UFC, right? He was nothing after he came into the UFC. And he beat Ricky Turcios. Cool. It's an alright win. Arichi Lang. I've seen Arichi Lang lose to fucking Raul Rosas Jr. just now. It's nothing special. The win over Javid Basharat is interesting, though. That is a good win. But again, I think that's because Javid got lulled into a low-output fight. And Aiemann Zahabi started to land the better shots. I don't think he's going to land the better shots against a guy like Pedro Munhoz, who isn't going to gas himself out. He's going to have the same output throughout. He's going to push a solid pace. Aiemann Zahabi's going to be on the back foot for a large majority of it. And he does that because he doesn't have a great gas tank. He doesn't push himself super hard because he doesn't have a great gas tank. That's one of the reasons why he doesn't push hard. So, I'll go Pedro Munhoz, unanimous decision, 30-27. We move to the start of the main card. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. I'm going to go with Mike Malott on this one. I'll go first round finish. I don't know if he knocks out Trevin or subs him. Trevin Giles is a weird case. Trevin Giles is good. He reminds me a lot of Phil Hawes in a sense, where MMA-wise, Trevin Giles is very solid. He just makes big mistakes, and he doesn't have the best chin. Trevin Giles, very solid in the striking. He was kind of kicking the shit out of Dricus du Plessis when they fight. He's usually always beating people for the most part. He was beating Carlos Prates in their fight. He was outlanding him by a significant amount until he got caught, and then he got knocked out. I also think that he shoots wayward takedowns, which leads to him getting subbed. And I'll tell you what, Mike Malott has great subs. He's great with defensive takedown defense, leading into jiu-jitsu, especially a guillotine, which, by the way, Trevin Giles has been hit by a guillotine 3 times in his career. All 3 in the UFC. Gerald Mearshart, Zach Cummings, and then at 291, I was there, by the way, against Gabriel Bonfim. He'll sometimes shoot these takedowns from way out, and people can counter them very easily. I just don't like that Trevin Giles is easily finished by people. And listen, he's only losing to good guys. That's the weird thing about him. He's usually only losing to dudes who are very solid at fighting. You put him in there with a lower level guy like a Preston Parsons, like a Luis Kos. Isn't this Orion Kosey's brother? It is. That is. I said his last name weird. It's Kosey. Bevan Lewis. Who the fuck is Bevan Lewis? The Extraordinary Gentleman. Then you'll have a weird thing where he's beating up Dricus du Plessis for the most part. Like, he is good. Trevin Giles is good. That's the thing. He just gets finished all the time. I like Malott. I like Mike Malott, even after the Neil Magny fight, which a lot of people dogged on him for. People forget, man. Mike Malott was beating Neil Magny's ass for 14 minutes of that fight until he got into a bad position and just was so tired that he couldn't do anything. Mike Malott, he has great defensive subs, like I said. Him on the feet, he is a little slower at times. He is kind of a little green on the feet to the day, but he hits very hard, which is what you need to do well against a guy like Trevin Giles. He has good body kicks. He also has a mean straight punch, and that's kind of the thing with Trevin Giles is all 3 of his knockouts are by straight punches, I'm pretty sure. Like Dricus had like the kind of like Superman punch almost, where he kind of just like Captain Underpants rushed in. Carlos Prates had the straight left. I forget what Michael Morales hit him with to knock him out. I think it was just like a straight punch. But Trevin Giles, I just don't like the fact that he's been finished so many times, man. I don't like it. I think Mike Malott finishes him in the first. I think the Canadian gets a big win in his return after his first ever UFC loss. Trevin Giles can do well in this fight, though. He definitely can. Mike Malott has some holes on the feet to the day. He is still a little open. But I think Mike Malott might catch him. Maybe Trevin shoots a wayward takedown and gets subbed. I think he finishes him in the first, though. We move to Marc-André Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm going to go with Marc-André Barriault on this one. I think he can... Man. I think he might be able to finish Dustin Stoltzfus, if I'm being honest. I think he could TKO Dustin Stoltzfus in maybe the second round or first. This one's tricky because both Marc-André and Dustin are kind of mid, which is fitting because they're at middleweight. They're both kind of slower. But I think that Marc-André Barriault you kind of need to be athletic to beat him. You got to have a bit of athleticism, especially as of recent. I don't know if Dustin Stoltzfus is athletic enough to beat a guy like Marc-André Barriault. I think Dustin Stoltzfus is a little too open against a guy like Marc-André Barriault. He gets hit a lot, gets cracked a lot. Dustin Stoltzfus, his striking, he leaves a lot of holes. On the ground, Dustin Stoltzfus is actually pretty solid. He's got quite a few subs under his belt. The Ponheli Soriano fight comes to mind to show off his full skill set. Most of his wins are by sub. But I think Marc-André Barriault's defensive grappling is all right enough to not get subbed by Dustin Stoltzfus. He's only been subbed one time in his career. He mostly loses by decision. I don't think Dustin Stoltzfus has like the show-stopping power to put out a guy like Marc-André Barriault either. They're both striking styles are kind of pressure forward, kind of try and cut off the cage. I think Marc-André Barriault's a little bit better off his back foot. I think Dustin Stoltzfus might get hurt a bit in this fight because Marc-André Barriault does have a pretty good right overhand. Dustin, I've not been super impressed with his UFC tenure, if I'm being honest. Not like crazy to say since he's 2-5 in the UFC. Marc-André, he is of course coming off the Joe Pyfer loss. I think Joe Pyfer would probably do the same thing to Dustin Stoltzfus though, so it's like that's not even like that crazy. I think Marc-André, I think his performance against Chris Curtis showed that Marc-André is all right. He's actually decent. His defensive striking is all right. He's able to counter pretty well, and I think that's going to work well against a guy like Dustin who kind of does leap in and lunge in at certain times. I think Dustin's probably going to get cracked maybe late of the first round, early in the second. I think Marc-André might be able to put him away with a couple of follow-up shots. Because Dustin, he doesn't really shoot takedowns when he's hurt. He kind of just wobbles and stays up, and he doesn't know what's going on, and then you crack him a couple more times and he goes down. I think that's exactly what's going to happen in this fight. So Marc-André Barriault late first, early second round TKO. We move to Caio Machado versus Brennison Ribeiro. This might backfire on me. I'm going to go with Caio Machado on this one. I think he's going to knock out Brennison Ribeiro in the first round. Brennison Ribeiro, honestly, pretty thin for a light heavyweight. Caio Machado moving down from heavyweight down to light heavyweight after a two losses back-to-back up at heavyweight against Don'Tale Mayes and Mick Parkin. Thing is, Caio actually looked pretty solid against Mick Parkin and against Don'Tale Mayes. Pretty solid competitive fights, on the feet at least. When it came to the grappling, he kind of got a little worked against Mick Parkin. That's kind of what led to him losing that fight. Brennison Ribeiro is good. He is pretty solid, very quick for a light heavyweight, if I'm being honest. He does get repetitive, though. That is something that he does do. And Caio Machado is very good at slipping straight punches and landing very big counter punches, I've noticed. Both in Don'Tale Mayes, both in the Mayes fight and the Mick Parkin fight. I think Mick Parkin's pretty solid, and Caio Machado probably gave him his toughest fight yet. Caio, I mean, this could backfire because it is a lighter skill gap. Brennison Ribeiro, honestly, his grappling looked alright against Magomed Gajiasulov. He just made some mistakes. Kind of looked like he gave up in the later rounds, in rounds 2 and 3. Kind of like gave up off his back. So if Caio Machado ends up on top, he honestly could get some work going on good old Brennison because he kind of gives up on the bottom position. But like I said, he does get repetitive with his combinations. He'll throw something once, he'll throw it again. If he likes it so much, he'll throw it 3 times in a row. I think Caio Machado might be able to counter him early in the first round. It's a heavyweight puncher moving down to light heavyweight. He hits very hard. I think Brennison Ribeiro's chin is kind of suspect, man. It's a little suspect. But I think Caio Machado finishes him in the first round. I think he knocks him out. This could blow up in my face. Brennison could easily go to like a 30-27 unanimous decision win. Because Caio Machado could be absolute poop at light heavyweight. He could be too slow. But I'm just going to bank on Brennison Ribeiro getting chinned in the first round. Probably with like a right overhand and he just like slumps over. So, yeah. We move to the featured fight. Derek Lewis versus Jonathan Denise. I'm going to go with... I could start off November, so shit. I'm going to go with Derek Lewis by first round KO. I could be fucking up my whole record right now by picking fucking Caio and Derek Lewis back to back, but I have my reasons. Not really. I just think Derek Lewis can knock him out. Jonathan Deniz is going to be more technical than him. He is. Janata's more of a single shot guy, though, I've noticed. And I don't think you need more than that to beat Derek Lewis. You need to have combinations put together. And I've seen Jonathan Deniz exchange in the pocket with guys like Carl Williams and Austin Lane. And honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I think Derek Lewis, I think he could get a takedown on good old Jonathan Deniz. I think he could take him down, dude. I think he can get a takedown on Jonathan Deniz because we've seen Derek Lewis willingly get in the clinch with people as of recent and willingly throw punches on the ground and grapple with people. Jonathan is technically sound. He is pretty good. He is kind of reactionary, though, I've noticed when people throw first. Derek Lewis, he can time people very well as well. And Jonathan Deniz, he is pretty quick, but sometimes he can get a little telegraphed with certain things and certain movements of his. One of the things I am fearful of in this fight for Derek Lewis are the leg kicks of Jonathan Deniz, because Derek Lewis is just there to get leg kicked. He stands there straight up. But I think Derek Lewis is going to be one of the guys that's going to be bigger than Jonathan Deniz weight-wise. Jonathan Deniz, at a lower output fight, like the one against Carl Williams, where there was no grappling, he had decent cardio. Against Austin Lane, you could visibly see him start to slow down incredibly. That's why I think Derek Lewis might try and get some clinch throws in here. I think he might try to do 5 reps of bullshitting around, like he was in the Rodrigo Nascimento fight. Because Jonathan Deniz is a very talented kickboxer, he is. That's why I think Derek Lewis might actually try and get some throws, try and take him down a little bit, and then try and set up his knockout punches. Because Jonathan Deniz, he does get hit sometimes by Carl Williams. Carl Williams is pretty quick. He doesn't have insane power in his hands like Derek Lewis. And Jonathan Deniz, he does have power too. He does hit very hard, but I don't know. Again, Jonathan Deniz, the reason why I picked Derek Lewis against Rodrigo Nascimento was, one, Derek, he didn't have really a presence on the feet, and 2, he just seemed like a guy that Derek Lewis could knock out. That's why I'm picking Derek Lewis, is because I think Jonathan Deniz is a guy that Derek Lewis can randomly just KO. So, yeah, there's really no basis for this pick. I think Jonathan Deniz is a little telegraphed. I think Derek Lewis might be able to time him. I will say, if this fight goes the distance, and it is just pure striking, if it's pure striking, no grappling, no clinching involved, Jonathan Deniz will probably win. Because Jonathan Deniz can pile it on Derek Lewis, because Derek Lewis does just willingly get hit sometimes, and I don't like that very much for him. But, yeah, I think Derek Lewis can finish it early. Jonathan Deniz, maybe a little too big for his britches right now. 3rd fight in the UFC, getting Derek Lewis, maybe a little too much on his plate. Maybe the moment's too big for him. He gets clipped early, sent back to the unranked bums that he'll probably be. We move to the co-main event, Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Tricky fight. Very tricky fight. I will go with Erin Blanchfield, though. It is a tricky fight. I think if this was 5 rounds, I would probably pick Rose Namajunas, if I'm being honest. But since it's 3, I think Erin can stall positions, get Rose down, get control time, land some ground and pound, land some stuff in the clinch, to where it's hard to give Rose the rounds. And also, I think Rose is just a little too low output at flyweight for me. She's also been taken down at flyweight quite a bit. I think Manon Fior got her down a couple of times. If I'm not mistaken, I think Amanda Hebos got like 4 takedowns against Rose Namajunas, and I don't like that a lot, if I'm being honest. Because I think Erin Blanchfield's wrestling is better than Amanda Hebos's. I think her throws are a bit better. I think she's probably a little bit stronger, too. This is a fight where Erin Blanchfield isn't significantly outgunned like the Manon Fior fight, which Rose did way better against Manenfiore, by the way. If you want to cross-reference fights, if you want to do that to pick your fights, you would pick Rose Namajunas, because Rose actually had a very competitive fight with Manenfiore in moments. Erin Blanchfield kind of got steamrolled. But I think that's just a stylistic nightmare for Erin Blanchfield, a bigger girl who can defensively grapple. Rose Namajunas can defensively grapple, but she has a 59% takedown defense. Not the biggest fan of it. Also, I think Erin Blanchfield's pace, I think she's going to try and put a pace on Rose Namajunas, and if I'm being honest, Rose honestly lost the 5th round against Tracy Cortez, if I remember correctly, which, What are we doing there, Rose? I think she did at least. I think Tracy started getting her takedowns then. So, I think Erin can work her way in. Rose at flyweight doesn't really show any threat to me besides the knockdown against Tracy Cortez, but like, it's Tracy fucking Cortez. Come on, what are we doing, guys? But, come on, what are we doing? Knocked her fake eyelash off. I think Erin Blanchfield can work her way in, land a couple of pit-pat shots, get against the clinch, or not against the clinch, against the fence, work her clinch, work her shots in, try and stall positions, make Rose have to work out, or work her way out, and then try and get her back in those positions. I think Rose Namajunas just doesn't really have a threat to me in this fight. She doesn't pose a lot of threats at flyweight like she did at strawweight. So I'll pick Erin Blanchfield by decision, 29-28 split. I think it's going to be a weird fight. I think people are going to cry robbery. I think people are going to say, that's not the right decision. I think it'll kind of resemble the Tyler Santos fight. I think Erin Blanchfield's just going to get too much control time for the judges to work their brains around how to actually score fights, and I think they're going to give it to Erin Blanchfield for some reason. So yeah. We move to the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. 5 rounds. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno on this one. Amir Albazi, listen, to the day, I am still not super highly impressed, if I'm being honest. I think Kai Kara-France clearly beat him in their fight. And I think that Brandon Moreno is just... I think his defensive grappling is all right. Even if Amir Albazi is able to get him down, I think Brandon Moreno is able to scramble and roll very well. Roll very well. I think Brandon Moreno's cardio is very good. He still looked pretty solid in round 5 against Brandon Royval at Elevation in Mexico City. I also think that the fact it's a bigger cage is going to fuck with Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi's last 2 fights have been in the Apex, which is a smaller cage, which is where he's able to even work his takedowns. And I get this. His takedowns were shit against Kai Kara-France, so he couldn't get them. But, like... And I know Kai Kara-France is probably one of the, like, best, like, defense or wrestling nullifiers, like, anti-grapplers in the UFC. I mean, his takedown defense is kind of fucking nuts as Kai Kara-France. But I think Brandon Moreno is also pretty good. I think Amir Albazi just isn't really all that good with his grappling either. His takedown defense is kind of shit. I see people taking down Amir Albazi all the time, if I'm being honest. He gets taken down more than he takes people down. I don't like that, especially against a guy like Brandon Moreno who will shoot on Amir Albazi. He will. He shoots on everybody. He'll try and get a takedown, and Amir Albazi, his takedown defense is a little weak. I don't like that Amir Albazi is coming off of a life-threatening injury to his fucking neck and spine. I don't like that at all. He's fucking shredded for this fight. I'll give him that. He looks in very good shape, does Amir Albazi. I think his striking is just a little too poor. I think his cardio isn't good enough to hang with a guy like Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno's more... I've seen him against better people. I've seen him have very close fights, and that's the thing. Brandon Moreno is always in close fights. He either wins or he loses. It's always close fights with Brandon Moreno. And Amir Albazi can make it close, but I think Brandon Moreno can separate himself as the fight goes on. Amir Albazi is going to try and shoot. He's lower output, doesn't throw as much. He's in your face a little bit. I think Brandon Moreno is going to be able to counter him very easily, though. Amir Albazi is kind of counterable. I think he's kind of telegraphed with certain strikes. His takedown entries are good. It's just like he can't finish them. He just can't finish his takedown entries for some reason. I don't know what it is with Amir Albazi. He just struggles to finish his takedown entries. So I think Brandon Moreno, even though Brandon Moreno's takedown defense isn't the best, I think it's like a 60 or something. His get-ups are good. And I don't think Amir Albazi has the back presence like a fucking Pantoja or the control of a Pantoja, where Pantoja can hold people down for long periods of time. He can maintain the back for long periods of time. He can do that. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against... I don't think Amir Albazi is as good as Pantoja. I don't think he is. And I think that a lot of people are overlooking Brandon Moreno since the Brandon Royval fight. I think Royval's a bitch of a guy to fight. I think he's a bitch of a guy to fight. He's a weird fight. Throws a lot of punches, has insane cardio, is always throwing something, always in your face, always doing something. Amir Albazi ain't that. He's the pressure without the output. That's what he is. He doesn't have the output, doesn't have the cardio either. He slowed down pretty significantly against Kai Kara-France. And I know Kai Kara-France has great defensive wrestling. Ugh. Brandon Moreno is also pretty good. And I'm not willing to doubt him yet. I'm not willing to doubt on my boy Brandon Moreno. This is my boy. It's my guy. I'm not willing to doubt on him yet. I promise, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, guys. I promise. I'll be a UFC champion, guys. I promise. I think Amir Albazi just isn't good enough. I don't think he's faced enough good guys. He's also not a young contender. Like, Amir Albazi's technically older than Brandon Moreno. Coming off a life-threatening injury. His best win isn't even... It's not Kai Kara-France. He didn't win that fight. His best win is probably like Alessandro Costa. It's probably his best win. Every other guy he's beat is kind of poop. So, I don't think his takedowns work against a guy like Brandon Moreno. I don't think he finishes a guy like Brandon Moreno who can get cracked on the feet. I don't think Amir Albazi has that Pantoja where he's able to drop him in the pocket, or the counter striking, or the hitting on the end of your punches when someone's exiting an exchange like a Figueiredo. I don't think he has that. I don't think Amir Albazi has the style to beat Brandon Moreno. You have to be a dog to beat Brandon Moreno. You're going to have to willingly exchange in the pocket, take a lot of damage to take him down, or take damage on the feet and just throw down with him. Amir Albazi isn't that. He tries to keep it clean in fights. He doesn't like getting hit. He don't like it. He shies away. I think Brandon Moreno's going to win this fight. It'll be close because Brandon Moreno always somehow makes it close. I think the rounds will be competitive, but I think it'll be a clear 49-46 Brandon Moreno. I think the first round, Amir Albazi is going to try and ease his way into the fight. Same with Brandon. I think Amir Albazi is going to throw a lot of shit, though. Hasn't fought in a while. He's going to be a little rusty. He's going to try and throw too much on his britches, and then he's going to miss a lot. And I think Brandon Moreno is going to capitalize late. I think Brandon Moreno beats him by decision. I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Edmonton, Moreno vs. Albazi on November 2nd, 2024. My confident picks reside with Charles Jourdain, Mike Malott, and in the main event, Brandon Moreno. My pre-card rating is a 7 out of 10. This is honestly a pretty solid fight night. I like a lot of the fights on this card. There's a lot of valid matchups on here. And you have a couple sleeper fights on here. I think the top 3 fights of the bill are pretty solid. I think you also have some solid fights like Caio Machado, Brendan Ribeiro. I like Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. I think this card has a lot of upsell for Canada. And this is one of the last 3 fight nights in arenas for the remainder of the year. We only have one more Apex fight night for the year, so let's enjoy this while we can for the year. I think this is a pretty solid card for Canada, especially. I'm uploading this probably on Halloween. This is probably going to be a double upload day. If you care, I uploaded my recap late. Sorry about that, but happy Halloween. I hope you guys had a fucking solid one. But yeah, I think the fights are going to be pretty solid. I'll see you guys after the fights. Peace.